Hi everybody, and a warm welcome back to Maple Leaf Customs in Switzerland. I'm Andrew, and on the bench today is a 1:64 scale Hot Wheels 1970 Ford Torino. I know this car. My high school girlfriend's father drove one, and I was often behind the wheel. It was a big one to try to parallel park. This is going to be my entry to the December Four Horsemen invitational, the last one of the year, and the theme is Mad Max, which is always fun. The Four Horsemen are Paul from Diecast Graveyard, Xavier from Diecast Show Customs, myself representing Maple Leaf Customs, and the December guest horseman is Jay's Diecast Creations. Here you can see the whole 2023 build schedule, and we've got a new rule this year for the Four Horsemen. If you don't have the exact car that we feature in the calendar, you can use the closest you've got, like I'm doing right here. This is a little bit older model of a Torino. Mine's from the 2017 Hot Wheels Muscle Mania 5-pack, but that's okay. We want this to be as inclusive as possible. When you do participate, be sure to send a glamour pic into us at fourhorsemendiecast@gmail.com, and we'll include your build in a recap video. As I disassemble the Torino, I'll just let your mind wander for a few moments. You try to guess what kind of heavy modifications I'll make to the body and the wheels for a Mad Max theme. It's going to be interesting to see what everybody does with the same casting, and that's part of the fun of these monthly invitationals. I think it's a good practice to put all the bits into one basket like this, so as the build progresses over the week you don't find anything's gone missing. At least that's the theory. This is the first time I can remember that my fierce paint stripper lost the battle, and this time to a mainline casting. You can see it didn't nearly all come off, but it's no real big deal because it easily comes off with a Dremel tool attachment. It's just going to take me an extra minute or two, and when it's a Mad Max themed build, we're not going for the perfect glassy finish, but neither do I want any remnants of these old paint splotches on there. I use a rust-colored primer out of a spray can for a Mad Max car, and I'll build the patina up on top of that layer by layer. I'm coming off a bit of a setback recently by a very final step fitment failure on my limited run of 10 Bel Airs, announcing today that I'm making a do-over, and the new and improved run of 10 Bel Air Gassers will be for sale in mid-January. This week's community shoutout is an opportunity for you to get in on the ground floor of a brand new YouTube channel, Jack's Diecast Garage. Jack and I have been writing back and forth, and I'm happy to be his second subscriber. Check the link that I always leave in the description for the community shoutout, and go on over there and visit Jack. I cut out the passenger side door, and nothing goes in the bin around here. It's going to become a gunner platform, and I'm first going to affix some steel rails across here with an L-shaped styrene piece. That's going to help to support the door like so. You probably already know that baking soda on top of super glue makes an instant bond and is a real lifesaver for hobbyists like me when we're doing extra heavy modifications that require a lot of add-on parts. I'm putting a 3D printed roof hatch on the top of the Torino that's hinged in the front, so when it pops open it serves as a bit of a shield. I've removed the passenger seat as well, so there's room for someone to stand in there, pop up through the roof, and wield a flamethrower. I'm adding some reinforcing steel over the wheel wells. They're not supposed to look perfectly cut or uniform or straight. Remember, this is a post-apocalyptic, kind of a backyard garage build where you use whatever you can cobble together. So use your imagination as well and watch this take shape. According to Wikipedia, the Torino was produced by Ford for the North American market between 1968 and 1976. The car was named after the city of Turin, Torino in Italian, considered the Italian Detroit and not far from where I live. The Torino was initially an upscale variation of the intermediate-size Fairlane. The Fairlane name was used for the lower trim level models, while the upscale models were called Torino. Most of them were conventional cars, and the most popular models were the four-door sedans and the two-door hardtops. However, Ford produced some high-performance versions by fitting them with 428 cubic-inch Cobra Jet engines, making them true muscle cars. Ford also chose the Torino as the base for its NASCAR entrance, and it has a rather successful racing heritage. Here are the rear deck-mounted flamethrower fuel cells to go along with the side-mounted machine gun. Speaking of Torinos, and speaking of firepower, didn't you love Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino? Get off my lawn. I want to raise the ride height because it's a Mad Max themed build and we gotta go over some rocks and debris on the post-apocalyptic desert roads. So that requires a couple of axle tubes, more super glue, more baking soda to lock it down into place, and it's taking shape. You see it's a little bit higher now, and I make sure the wheels are good rollers before I continue. This one passes tech inspection. I decided to keep the original wheels because they're pretty well hidden under the body and behind those steel rails, but I do take the time to black them out, and later they'll get weathered a little bit to look like they've been on the dusty plains. They'll suit my purposes just fine. Any application of matte black paint just serves to make sure that your eye is not drawn towards these parts. It also cleans up some of the super glue baking soda mess that gets made. For a Mad Max build, I apply a generous coating of black wash. That's just the first one for this car, as well as some gunmetal gray highlights on all of these steel rails and reinforcements and any of the weaponry. Remember, this is just stage one of painting and weathering. It's a process where each layer builds upon the one before it. It's part of the project that I quite enjoy. Now that's too bright and shiny, but it'll get dulled down later. I do want to add a little bit of color, so the flamethrower fuel cells are yellow. And the gunner's seat is red. More black wash and rust wash to come to knock all these down a little bit. I always like to give credit to BP Custom Creations for some of his moves that I've incorporated into my post-apocalyptic builds. One of them is making these tiny rivets out of the thinnest piece of styrene rod that I've got. You gotta use just the tip of the X-Acto blade to put each one of these on individually, and it turns out with this kind of effect. making all the steel bars look like they were riveted on there. Now there's one of the most famous TV cars ever that you'll recognize, the Gran Torino from the 70s cop show Starsky and Hutch. Kinda makes you want to go out and try a hood slide, doesn't it? Rust wash is most effective when it goes over the metal parts of these builds. Once it dries, it leaves a very nice, authentic looking effect, which is exactly what we're going for with these post-apocalyptic theme builds. I've completed what I think is sufficient weathering on the Mad Max Torino. I did put a coat of matte clear finish to seal all that down, and now it's time to put it all back together piece by piece. The only modification I did to the interior was removing the passenger seat to give access for the side gunner to slide in and out, as well as whoever's using the flamethrower to stand centrally and pop up through that hatch. Base goes on just fine. There were lots of dry fits throughout the process. The wheels are free and turning as they should. And I've simply left the front and the rear bumper for the very end to be attached with some glue. Now it looks like this. Couple of final touches. When I got to the end, I thought I better put well, that's not a happy face, that's a sour face on the driver's door, and a little patriotism on the hood. Wanted that to look like faded white paint. And now we can have a closer look. I spent about a week on these cars, a little here and a little bit there, and I'm quite happy with the final results on the Ford Torino. The ride height has been raised a little bit. The steel rails serving as protection go essentially all around the car when you consider the front and rear bumpers. The original glass never went back in, just some more steel bars in crucial areas. I grunged up the bottom using typhus corrosion and a little bit of weaponry to suit the theme. It looked pretty pedestrian to begin with. Mine had the louvered rear window. But after some on-the-fly decisions about what to do, I turned it into this creation, which can now patrol the plains in a Mad Max post-apocalyptic world. I think it looks good from all angles. This one's getting packed up and is being sent to South Carolina to 2A HD Cat in exchange for a generous donation to a children's hospital. Something he and I have done for 3 years in a row now. Thanks, Cat. I hope it arrives safely at your place. I want to thank everybody for visiting my channel today. Be sure to watch all of the other Four Horsemen Torino Mad Max builds. I wish you a Happy New Year. Drive carefully. It's coffee time.